I want to be a little bit more specific about what leaders can do and should do in this environment. And I want to start with what I consider to be the most important one, and that is to simply break the isolation. Yes, people are working at home, and part of them loves being at home, being able to work in shorts and a t-shirt and all of that, but they still are more isolated. There is numerous research, for example, on what happens to many professionals after they retire. And there are some rather severe health impacts that often are evidenced on people after they've retired. And when you talk to them and ask them what's going on, they say, well, the phone never rings. No one needs me. I feel totally alone. I feel separated. I don't feel important. So their sense of, again, remember that question the limbic system is asking, how am I doing? How am I valued? Our sense of how we're valued can collapse because no one reaches out to us. So I want you to break the isolation with curiosity, caring, connection, and I'm going to give you a process here called VUE, V-U-E, which is an acronym for process I want to share with you. So let's go into VUE. Let's just dive into that right now. So I want you to I'm going to use an expression to come alongside employees with VUE, validation, understanding, and empathy, empathize with them. So the validation is simply to acknowledge their experience, just acknowledge where they are. The understand part is to join with them in the experience. Let them know that you're in it too and that you understand the impact it has on them. And then the empathize, I want you to, this is even the third most important, the deep level on connection. It's to help them feel felt. That is, do you understand how they feel? So we want to give them an opportunity to share with you their felt experience. And that's an incredibly valuable thing that a manager can do. How can I come alongside these people and help them feel connected and felt by me as their leader? So let's talk about validate. Just connect with them, see them where they are. I want to give you a little bit of a script here to get the pump primed. So here's an example. I know what we're going through is rugged, and this situation has an impact on you. Or another, I know this situation isn't ideal. The key role of validation, at least in our work and how we share it with managers in our boot camp and in our other work, it's the most fundamental act of one human being recognizing the presence of another. To see them right where they are and just acknowledge that you see them there. And that has incredible value. Every human being on the planet wakes up every day in search of validation. Do you see me? Do you know me? Do you know I'm here? Do you value that I'm here? Are you glad that I'm here? This is hardwired in the human genome. So anytime we can validate someone, we're meeting a very basic human need. That should be at a minimum. But I want to do more than just notice them. I want to understand what they're going through. I want to come along, not just see them from a distance. Now I want to come alongside them. And we need to understand that right now, what seemed to be easy before now feels harder. This is their experience. Working from home presents a number of challenges. Even if it's just finding a quiet corner of a table to work on, it's harder. Finding balance in this new norm can feel very elusive. And we tend to be more preoccupied and more easily distracted. So if you as a manager leader simply understand this and share that with them, you need to understand it first and then let them know you understand it. That's incredibly valuable. We're not going to be able to do work at home the same way we did it before. We have to give people permission to do things differently in this environment. And we want to let them know they have permission to do it differently. So here's some things you could say. I understand. I hear you. I get that it can be hard to focus on work with everything going on. And then a simple question, what do you need? What do you need? To start to probe what role, so it's listening first and then what do you need? Please don't rush to solution, because you could go in and solve someone's problem and they don't feel any connection with you whatsoever. And that's not the role of a great leader at all. Okay, so what's the third one here? The role of empathy and to empathize. Empathy is medicinal. It is more powerful than any pharmaceutical. It mitigates distress and anxiety. It's a very powerful tool. And in the research on brain mapping, one of the most fascinating things that's happened in the last decade is brain mapping and finding out when we feel empathetic towards someone, where do the regions of the brain light up like a Christmas tree? And then later on, when you feel pain, when you've been hurt, and you look at, okay, when we feel pain, where do the neurons light up like a Christmas tree? And when those two pieces of work were combined, we discovered there was a huge overlap. And so the role of empathy, the function of empathy, is that it actually helps us feel the pain of the other. And that is a deeper understanding. That's not only coming alongside them, it's really putting your arm around them and providing some soothing, metaphorically. So it does help contain, mitigate distress and anxiety. Feeling more distant from colleagues makes it harder to accomplish things. It just does. Because these, what neuroscientists, again, have referred to this as reliable social resources, which what these significant others at work are for us, they're now gone. I mean, they may be available through a phone call or a text, but we're much less likely to do it because of everything else going on. So everything we do feels a little harder. Let them know, normalize that for them. Say, I know this work feels harder when you're doing it at home. I know this is harder to do in this kind of environment. And also, your employees are worried about their family, friends, and colleagues, and we need to let them talk about that and express that fear, if you will, too. We don't want to suppress it. We don't want to run over it. We don't want to ignore it or blow past it. We want to touch it, and by touching it, we help contain it. So what are some things that you can say? I'd love you to start with, how are you? How are you doing? And then ask them about their partner. If you know their partner's name, please use it. But how's your husband? How's your wife? How's your partner? How are they doing? How are you and your family coping with all that's going on? It's hard to see our children struggling with the isolation and anxiety they're feeling. Talk about that and let them talk about it. I know it makes everything we do feel more difficult, and I feel anxious as well. Now, it is important for a leader to be strong, to be providing this direction that I talked about before, but it's also helpful if you're human. And you can express a little bit of vulnerability and openness about your own experience because it helps normalize it for the other. Okay, am I the only one that feels fearful? What, am I weak and inadequate? Because my boss seems impervious to what's going on. That's not necessarily the important strong suit of a leader. It is very valuable to be open and to be vulnerable and let them know that you're there too. This is a little bit of a different take on the traditional view of leadership, which was to be the strong rock on high, solving all the problems. But it's a much more human and realistic view of leadership. And it's what the future of work is going to demand. It's what employees will be demanding of their leaders.